2, 3.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fringe session for Babs Sing 2021. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I am very happy to be with you today. I'm Gus Sternum, and I'm going to be the host for the meeting while Dale does his presentations. Very happy to be with you. Sorry, I was getting some feedback from the YouTube live stream. I was hearing my voice about 5 seconds afterwards.
Yep.
Had to disable that, put it on mute. So we have a wonderful presentation for you this morning. Dale Kynaston is going to talk about wonderful vocal stuff. I will have the chat window open here on Zoom, and also we'll be keeping an eye on the chat on the YouTube live stream. So if you have any questions that pop up while you are listening, put them in one of the chat windows, and I will make note of those and be compiling a list to put together. And then when we get to the end, we'll open it up and start answering some of those questions. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dale to let him talk about wonderful voice stuff.
Thanks, Gus. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for helping out today as well. Welcome, everybody. Once again, so nice to see some different faces. Even though you're not in person, sadly, it's nice to be able to see you all. And thank you for coming along today. I'm hoping that you're going to find this session quite useful. I've run the session now probably around 4 or 5 times with different individual choruses across the UK. And what I'm going to talk about today is related to all sorts of singing, not just barbershop. Those that don't know me, I'm the current Director of Music and Education for Babs, and I've been around barbershop for quite some time, since I was quite little. So for the last 3.5 years, I'm become a part-time singing teacher at a local music school. So I actually teach three times a week from 3 o'clock in the afternoon through till around 8 o'clock at night. So I've got around 26, 27 students, something like that at the moment. And what that actually does for me is it's taken me into kind of different worlds outside of barbershop in terms of attending other educational events and so on. And I've picked up lots of little snippets along the way, which I thought would be really good to share with you, because I'm using a lot of that in practice now where I'm teaching people. So as I say, singing is singing, and you know, whether it's opera, rock, barbershop, pop, folk, your voice is your voice. You know, it does what it does. You can choose a particular style, which may require you to understand certain, you know, the mechanisms in certain ways to achieve a certain flavour, if you like, depending on the genre that you're singing with. But essentially, the vocal apparatus is the same. So when I'm working with voices, and I'm working with people from the age of around 6 through to people in their 70s, so quite a wide range of people, men and women, some of the common things that crop up with those voices, the common problems, the common blocks, if you like, I'm going to talk about today, which is why I put this presentation together. I thought it might be of use to some of you, probably all of you actually. So I'm going to start a PowerPoint presentation. Now, don't give me a big sigh thinking, oh, here we go, another PowerPoint presentation. There's only 6 slides, you'll be pleased to know. And through those 6 slides, I'm going to talk an awful lot. And if you have an absolute burning question that you can't hold off till the end, then please put your hand up or shout out or something like that. And as Gus said, he's keeping an eye on the chat window as well. So I'm sure we'll try and pick up on those things. But if not, we'll get you at the end with it. No problem at all. So let's just get this PowerPoint going now. How are we looking? Can we see that, Gus? Yeah, we're all there. Excellent. Okay, so as you can see, this little mini presentation's called Remove Singing Blocks and Recognizing the Common Interruptions to Pitched Vowel Streams. And you might think, what's he talking about? Well, it basically means where the phonation is. So most of the phonation comes through vowels. It doesn't come through consonants. And so in order to phonate more often, and most of the time, we need to remove anything that's blocking that sound coming through. Vowels make the most sound, okay? And I'm sure you'll have heard from your musical directors, your coaches, about hitting the target vowel. Holding that target vowel open as long as you possibly can, okay? And there's a lot to be said for that. Obviously, the longer the vowel's held open, the more phonation we get. This doesn't just apply to barbershop, though. Singing in general is about maximising the time we spend on phonation with pitched vowel streams. A second, just flip through my notes. So that really is the key to it all. Let's find ways to phonate more of the time and remove the blocks that are stopping us doing that. It's as simple as that, really. So thanks very much, and we'll see you all again soon. Singing only vowels, you will have done maybe in your rehearsals on and off, either with quartet or chorus, just singing vowels, just to try and get that feeling of that open, free resonant sound all of the time with nothing getting in the way. It's a good technique. I get my students to do this quite a bit. I'm sure you've done it yourselves. It's hard to do, because you lose your place. You don't know what you forget what the words are you're singing, and you start to lose where you are. But even if we do that exercise, even if we're singing just vowels, we can still get it wrong, okay? Because there are certain things that we do in terms of shaping sounds that cause us problems. I've been in barbershop since 1984. I joined a quartet in 1984, and then I later joined a chorus and became a Babs member in 1985. I know I don't look old enough. No? Okay, fair enough. But throughout that period of time, I've been at the other side of people coaching me, from the society in the States, from people in the UK, all over the place. There've been lots of flavours of the month over those years. I'm sure some of the faces I can see here that have been around as long as me or longer would agree with me on that. And they were the, if you like, then experts at the time. And we had a period in time in the 80s and 90s when there was a lot of focus on matching those vowel sounds, okay? And it was all about matching shapes. Do you remember that? We had this thing from Bill Myers. Bill Myers was a board member, a society member, and he was on education, and he put together this sheet of photographs of his face with different shapes. So this is an E, this is an R, this is an U. And we went through a period where everybody, this was the gospel, this is what everybody was following. We stood on the risers with a mirror, and we looked at ourselves, looked at our own mouths with a mirror. It was quite incredible at the time. And everything was about matching that physical shape. And to be honest, that is a quick choral fix. It's a very quick choral fix, and it will make things sound better. generally speaking. Sadly, it doesn't address the fundamental vocal production issues. So the shape that we make at the front of the mouth is simply the end of that whole process. It's the end of the vocal tract, and it will filter and slightly change what we've produced inside that tract and through up into the mouth. So it really isn't the be all and end all. It's a nice to have extra bit if you can do that as well, but in fact it can be counterproductive to try and make weird and wonderful shapes, because we add a ridiculous amount of tension into the sound. Yes, right. Well, just give me a second. I'm just trying to remember where I changed this slide. I've changed these notes just recently, so yeah, okay. We'll just go on to that vowel slide. So essentially vowels are, as it says there, a completely open configuration of the vocal tract. Okay, so if we're singing vowels, we're phonating, everything is open. Different vowels are open to different extents, but they are primarily open. It comes from the Latin vocalis, meaning uttering voice, and pitched vowel streams is the goal, basically. So as much as we can join together those vowel streams on pitch, that's the goal, so that we can make the best possible sound. So having no restrictions at all means less tension, as long as we don't overemphasize the vowels and overwork the jaw. As I said, so back in the 80s when Bill Myers was helping us out, I use inverted commas there, what was actually happening was people were creating more tension by trying to make these shapes, and there was an incredible amount of tension in the throat, the neck area, around the back of the neck, the cheeks. The tongue was getting over involved in trying to make these shapes. So not a particularly great thing to do. So if we concentrate on the sound that we make inside the mouth and everything that happens in the vocal tract, that's where we're going to get most of the wins, okay? And then the extra bit at the end, as I say, that little added filter at the end of a shape, and probably a much smaller shape than you used to do in the 80s, I need to add. But we do have a legacy of people in our hobby that still do that. And it's really hard to break out of it when it was kind of drilled into you for many, many years. You'll see people in particular creating a ridiculously open R vowel. Now you can try this yourself. You may as well do that as we're sat here together. If you put your fingers in between your two jaw bones just here, just by your ears there, you can feel where the two go together. And if you keep your mouth closed to begin with, then very slowly open your mouth, you'll find a point where your fingers drop in between those two jaw bones. Can you find that? Okay. So where your fingers drop into that point is actually as wide as your mouth ever needs to be. Because any further than that, you will notice you start to get constriction and different restriction in muscles around and inside your throat. That makes sense? Okay. So, in short, don't overwork your jaw. See it all the time. One of the easiest things when you're a coach is to start fixing people's jaws, because you can see that they're overdoing it. They're making lots of shapes with their mouth, or they're making a huge R vowel. If you overemphasize this, it's going to be completely counterproductive to the phonation that we're trying to create. As long as the word makes sense, and if the vowels are matched fairly closely, then great. Okay, it's not the main priority. Producing the sound well in the first place is the best possible way. So, producing pitch natural vowel streams without unnecessary tension. Just remember that. So moving on to slide 2, consonants. So consonants create constriction or closure of one or more points along the vocal tract. Okay, just let that absorb for a second. So where we've got totally open phonation with open vowel sounds, consonants create a constriction or a closure or partial closure one or more points down the vocal tract. And obviously we know we have singable and non-singable consonants. Regardless of whether they're singable or not, they are still a partial closure to the vocal tract. So some consonants, even singable, we need to find ways to sing better so that we're allowing more sound to come through those consonants. So non-singable consonants is really what I want to focus on with you. And in particular, I want to talk to you about the top two on that list there, and the top two plosives. Now, anybody that's been involved in sound recording of any sort will know that plosives are really awkward because that you make this kind of popping sound, and that's why we have these pop shields that you can see here, which I use on my recording equipment. So yeah, and Gus as well. Hey, let's play tennis. So we use those because it stops these plosive sounds coming over onto the recordings, and also S's, sibilant sounds, can also be quite annoying. And in modern technology now with recording, we have a de-esser, which actually takes those out, which is actually pretty annoying. If you listen to some recordings nowadays, you can hardly hear any S's at all because it goes a little bit too far. But anyway, plosives. Plosives are a closure of the vocal tract with lips, teeth, palate, or glottis. Okay. So I'm going to go through some examples with you of plosives, but I call these plosives and approximate consonants nasty consonants. Particularly when I'm teaching kids, we'll talk about nasty consonants and nice consonants. With the nasty consonants, often with the plosives, we are completely closing the vocal tract most times. So if for instance, I give you an example of a B, if you say B or B, but you take the vowel off it, so you take the and the E off, all you will get is closed lips. So the vocal tract is completely and utterly closed down. So, not a good thing. We don't want that. We've already said that our target is constant phonation through pitched vowel streams. So anytime when we completely close that, it's going to be a bad thing. However, we can learn how to handle those. There are certain ways that we can modify consonants so that we can still pass enough sound through without totally and utterly closing that vocal tract. So we just narrow the vocal tract rather than closing it. And often I work with people, in particular, in areas of their vocal range where they're going to struggle anyway. So if they're going up into their higher register, and it's going to be a challenge, and you can see the old feet going into concrete and getting too tense anyway. When they hit that note, if they concentrate on, if they don't do anything with that plosive, if they just hit it as it is, it's really going to cause them problems to try and actually generate a free resonant sound onto the vowel. We've also got approximants. Now, approximants or approximate consonants are a narrowing of the vocal tract. So it's where the vocal tract doesn't completely and utterly close. Some of these are also known as semi-vowels. Okay, and again, I'll come on to examples of those different things in a moment. But they're where the phonation is partially obstructed. So the worst ones are plosives. The next ones down on the list are approximants or approximate consonants. So without using Google, why don't you help me out here and tell me of some other, I've given you a B. I feel like I'm back at primary school there. What do you, give me some examples of plosives, anybody? Stick your hand up, shout out, I don't mind.
Garage.
G. So you're talking of G.
Hmm.
Yeah. G is a glottal plosive.
K.
K. Is that Kevin? Was that Kevin that said that? No? Who said that?
Sorry, I was on mute, Bill.
Bill. Hi, Bill. You're right. K. Yeah. So K, a hard K in particular, it is it's going to cause us problems, isn't it? So what else? Again, please.
P.
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 Yes.
P.
P is a slightly less nasty plosive. B is harder because it's a complete hard closure of the lips, whereas P has a little bit more air coming through it. But nonetheless, you're absolutely right. It is a plosive. Okay. Any others? Again?
T.
T. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, like P, T is a slightly lighter plosive compared to one that nobody's mentioned yet, which is similar.
V.
D, correct. D.
I said V.
Oh, you said V.
Yeah.
V is actually a fricative. So V, F, those kind of sounds, they're because actually a lot more air passes through those. But D, I misheard you, so I'll give you that one. You got it right. So D is a very hard plosive. D and B and G are probably the worst. So, if you're singing Get Out and Get Under the Moon, yeah, or if you're singing Bye Bye Love, Bye Bye, we've got loads of those B's coming in there. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, particularly when you're going into an area where you're trying to relax into your higher range to get the notes and you get the full closure of the vocal tract happening because you've got those plosives in there. Okay, yeah, good. So we had some examples there. Okay. Yeah, so I just muted then. I don't know why that happened, but
Sorry, that was my fault. I was accidentally trying to remute everybody who had unmuted to ask questions and inadvertently
No
muted
worries.
you as well.
No worries. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, if you make the sound B without the all you do is close your lips together. Not a total close. Not only is it a total closure, but it also creates tension in the jaw. So we want zero tension in our jaw when we're singing. And if you do the B, you can feel the tension coming into the jaw there. So that's another thing to try and avoid. G, as somebody else mentioned, is a closing of the glottis. Okay, so if you try with no sound following that as well, you will just have a closed throat. So take the off G, and you just get a closed throat. Okay, which is kind of weird. Say to people, make the G without the and they can't. I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean? Yeah, so throat is closed. D is fairly obvious. Tongue and teeth are in play there. Okay, so again, whenever you get your tongue involved in anything more than you need it to be, then obviously we only see the blade of the tongue at the front. We don't see the whole ball of muscle which lies at the back. So once that gets pulled into the equation, then we're further narrowing the airways. We're further narrowing that channel for phonation. Another idea, another one is a J. J is a kind of a lesser plosive. It's almost a fricative. Some sound passes through it, but there's still a lot of tension in the jaw when you make a J. You can feel all of that, the cheeks and the jaw coming into play. Okay. Again, we mentioned P, K, T. They're kind of lesser plosives. There's less constriction. However, if you, like I said before, if you're recording, then you're still going to need the pop shield with those ones as well. Okay, interesting name, plosive, isn't it? Plosive. It's like explosive. That's what I always remember it for, because That's the kind of effect that we have after we've opened the vocal tract again by releasing our lips or our throat. Excuse me a minute. So how do we deal with this, and how do we get around them? The simple answer is to modify and sing an alternative. Okay, so if I sang to you, goodbye, no use leading with our chins. Okay, so there's at the very beginning of that, there are two plosives, the g and the b. Goodbye. And if that's an awkward place in a range as well, it makes it even more difficult for you to get a nice sound through the vowel when you open up onto the vowel. So if I simply soften the B, let me just soften that B so that it becomes more like a P. Now, we've all agreed a P is still a plosive, but it's a much lesser plosive. It's a softer plosive. So if you listen again, goodbye. Now, without sounding ridiculous and singing good pie, which I'm sure you'll agree I didn't do. Yeah. Goodbye, no use leading with our chins. So that was much easier for me to produce the sound through a p than a b, because I didn't tightly close my lips onto the b. Yeah, so times two that you need to strongly consider this is when it's challenging for you. So one thing that I've gotten into doing now with my students as well in particular is getting them to mark up their music and the actual lyric in their music for areas that that have got some of these plosives and approximants in as well. We'll come on to those in a moment in more detail, but yeah, marking up every one of them in particular areas where they think they might have a problem. And then once they've done that, the difference is amazing, that they're automatically just singing so much freer, you know, because they can, and they didn't realize before that it was so easy to do. So let me just get on to, I'm just going to recap on that. So plosives, b, g, d, j, p, k, t. Okay, so those are the ones you need to look out for. So if I finish that example I gave you, and I now soften the g as well, because the g will totally close the back of my throat. So I'll sing it as it was originally, but with the modified b. Goodbye, goodbye. So now if I modify the g sound to a curly k, or something close to a curly k, okay, we're going to get this. Goodbye. Now, unless I told you about that, you would never have known that I sang could pie, would you? Okay, because I didn't make a big point of making a hard k or a hard p. It was sung very, very softly. So you see what I'm saying there? It's allowing more air to come through easier. We're keeping that vocal tract slightly open by not pressing things together tightly. Okay. Interestingly enough, I taught yesterday evening up until 7:30 yesterday, actually, and I worked with 7 people yesterday, and out of the 7 people that I worked with, 4 of them I worked with on this stuff, on plosives and on approximate consonants, because they were all affected by it. And you could see the tension come into the jaw. You could see their head position going into awkward positions because they were straining to get the note. Softening up these plosives, they just got the note. It really is, you know, you need to try this stuff out. And the beauty of this is it's an individual exercise. It's not something that you just say to the chorus, right, this is exactly what you're going to do on this word. It's an individual thing. Your range, all of your ranges are slightly different, and you'll have your challenging areas within your range. So look at your own music, look where you know you've got challenges, mark up these plosives, and then you're going to find life is a lot easier for you. Okay, so continuing on with this, so non-singables, approximants, okay, we have R, Y, W, and L. Now with these, you'll note with an R, when I sing R, just look how much is involved in making that sound, okay? R. There's so much play going on in there. With a Y, again, the beauty of a Y and a W, by the way, which are the semi-vowels in this lineup, is they always start with a vowel. Now, you may have heard this before. I make no apologies, but a Y always starts with E. Okay, so if I was to sing yes, the word yes, it would be yeah, yes, wouldn't it? So the yes. So the point I'm making here is that we shouldn't treat a Y as a consonant. We should always treat it as a combination of vowels. Okay, and the Y always starts with E and then goes on to whatever target vowel that you need it to go on to in that particular word. So the word yours would be your, yours. Okay, but if we think of it in terms of a hard Y, yours, we get all of that muscle and tongue and cheek and jaw involved in it. Sing it like vowels, we're on to a winner in terms of our target of constant pitched vowel streams. If we talk about, the W, yeah, if we just finish off that, that thought at the moment. So the W always starts with an U. Y, so that's ooh, E, Y. And again, if we think of it as a hard W, we get W, W. And we get so much involvement from all of those muscles that don't need to be a part of this whatsoever. So again, this is individual exercise, yeah? Mark up your Ys and your Ws on your music. And they're basically like a combination vowel, really. So it's like a Y starts with, sorry, yeah, and then whatever vowel it goes on to, W, whatever it goes on to. The R and the L. L obviously involves a huge amount of tongue, okay? And like I said before, when you bring the tongue into the equation, it brings the whole of the back of the tongue into play, which narrows the vocal tract, and you're going to get constriction in the throat. The only way around these is that we light touch them. It's as simple as that. Lover, come back. Lover, come back. Lover, come back. So if I really put the emphasis on the L, I'm going to get constriction. I'm going to get closure of the vocal tract or partial closure of the vocal tract. I literally just flick my tongue to make that L. I'm getting very little closure in that vocal tract. And exactly the same with the R. So R, R. Just get off it really quickly. Get to that target vowel sound. These are the, I mean, these, you know, this is really simple stuff for you to fix, believe me. And we need to talk about it more with our choruses and within your quartets, because it's about freeing up people's sound, allowing them to phonate, allowing, you know, them to take control by marking their own music up, their own words, and recognizing where their potential blockages can be. So please take that away and do it. That's the end of my presentation. So just in summary, the target in singing is to have this pitched vowel stream as often as we possibly can. So the vocal tract remains open for as long as we possibly can during singing. So anything that gets in the way of that, which is often plosives and approximants, we need to deal with. And the way to deal with that is to recognize them, mark them on our music, and in particular for where we know we might struggle vocally on a particular phrase. If there's a plosive or an approximant in there as well, then we're on a loser. So we need to mark that music up and think, well, what did we say about that? Okay, so a but becomes a per, it becomes a cur, a dirt becomes, I didn't mention that, a dirt becomes a t. Yes, so a t is a plosive, but it's a lesser plosive. So the dirt becomes a t. Okay, so when is darkness on the delta? I sang all T's then. Okay, so it really is keep it open, allow that sound to come through. There's an interesting link I'm going to share with you in the chat, which you can copy and paste and use from a resource that I use sometimes. It's Oxford Singing. Just one second. Yeah, Oxford Singing Lessons.co.uk. There's a bunch of free resource there. If you've not been to the singbarbershop.com website, you'll also notice there's tons of free resources on that page too. There's a education page within the website, and there's tons of this kind of stuff on there too. So go download all that material as well when you get a chance. But I'm just going to share that link now. Oh, no, I've not done it to everyone. Hold on. Gus has got it, but nobody else has. I'll do it again. There we go. So it's Oxford Singing Lessons.co.uk, and I've actually shared the link to this stuff about what we talked about here in particular. There's a few different angles there on it as well, which you might find interesting. But yeah, if you've got anything you want to ask, any comments you'd like to make, please go ahead now. Is there anything in the chat, Gus?
There isn't anything in the chat yet.
Okay.
But if folks have any questions, absolutely pop up with them. Before we do that, though, everybody click on reactions and give Dale a clap for a good, wonderful presentation. Question in the chat from Colin Barnes. What about rolled R's?
Rolled R's. Wasn't he a writer? That's Roald Dahl, sorry. Rolled R's, that's an interesting one, yeah. So rolled R's are actually probably slightly lighter than hitting a hard R because it's that kind of, I can't do it. So I'm trying to demonstrate this here to you, and I can't bloody do it. So if you notice, that is actually lighter than when you make a hard R sound. So if you are so inclined to do a rolled R in, I can't think of Roald Dahl now, in another form of singing that you do, then it's probably better than the hard R that we've just talked about, the one that we normally do.
One thing that I've done with my singers when we have rolled R's is just have them do a single flip, because when you get 10, 15, 30 people doing a single flip on an R, then you get a combined rolled sound. Whereas if everybody tries to do a long roll, it starts to sound like a rattlesnake.
Yeah, true. Any other, but just please shout out and ask me a question if you want to. That's absolutely happy to take any questions related to this topic, hopefully. I've obviously blinded you with information, have I?
Oh, can you give
James, so I'm sorry, Chris, I'll come to you in a second. James?
I was going to ask about is there any way we can sensibly reduce sibilance?
I mean, the only one that I've come across is a Z for an S.
Yeah.
If you're particularly the end of a word with an S, if we go more towards a Z, Gus, that's a Z we're talking about. Then that sometimes helps.
Yeah.
It doesn't work very well at the beginning of the word, but certainly at the end.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Chris, sorry.
You said earlier about the different places in the vocal tract that you would close off. What instance would you actually close your teeth?
Your teeth?
Yeah.
Okay, so your teeth.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for using that word. Yeah. There you go. You solved it yourself. Yeah. So we close our teeth on that and on d. They come into play, don't they, with the tongue? And then the lips come into play on the b and the p.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, you've been a wonderful audience. As Rod would say, the best audience I've performed to all day. But
All right.
if you do have any other questions, and we've got 5 minutes left, feel free to have a chat if you wanted. But any other questions, feel free to just email me. Obviously, you can get me via the Babs website with a rather long email address. But please just get in touch. I'm happy to come back to you with answers on any questions you've got. It's so nice to see you all.
So Dale, sorry, Bill here.
Hi, Bill.
The B's and the D's and swapping those, like particularly swapping the D for a P. How is it?
D for a T. D for a T.
D for a T. Yeah. B for a P. Sorry.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that just a practice thing to make it not sound like a pie? Because you demonstrated it so easily, but when I was doing it myself on mute, it was just to me it was still definitely coming across as pie.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, how do I not make that happen?
So yeah, I think you've probably answered your own question. It's rehearsal. So you just need to practice, and it is an individual thing. So it's not something that I would need to stand in front of a chorus and say, okay, everybody, because I wouldn't know whether they were doing it right or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It's an individual thing, and you know what sound you've made. You can hear it. So just practice it. Practice over and over, and it really does come good. I can guarantee you. And I've never had anybody say to me, "Why did you sing that?" Yeah, because they didn't notice I was singing it. You only noticed because I told you I did it. Yeah, I hope so. Anyway.
No, absolutely. It was a remarkable difference, actually. So yeah, cool. Thank you.
We've always talked over the years, haven't we, about getting to the vowel, the target vowel. So a quick way of getting to the target vowel is for us to keep the vocal tract open and not completely shut down through these B's, the G's, the D's, and so on. So it's got to be worth a bit of time and effort, hasn't it? So if you get, if you're involved in the musical running of a chorus or whatever, then this is something that would be really useful for you to roll out and get people to understand. It's a really simple thing, it may not sound it, but it really is. And again, I think we'll try and get the slides to you. As I said, there's only 6 slides, but it kind of summarizes, what we talked about in terms of the approximants and plosives in particular. Okay. Well, yep. Ian.
Just taking
Colin,
your
sorry,
point about.
Colin.
Yeah, sorry. You call me what you like.
So there's another name underneath you, and it was Ian, and then I looked, I thought, no, it's Colin.
I forgot what I was going to say now. Right. No, just taking your points and your answer to Bill's question about what you actually sing, or actually only you know what you've sung. The audience, by the time they've heard it, it's gone. And if they've got a mind to think about what did he actually sing, they're thinking it too much. But I've been practicing this sort of thing and doing it to people who don't know what I'm doing, and they really don't know you're doing it. So it's a mindset thing that you're doing it, but 99 people out of 100 probably won't, unless they're, you know, they're on this screen, won't know.
Yeah, true. So the other thing, just very quickly, while I think about it, I mentioned at the very beginning, you know, keeping vowels open most of the time is the goal. But we can also produce vowels badly, and that's through overuse of the jaw and mouth. I want to repeat that because that's as bad in some cases for some people, particularly if they've been indoctrinated with old ways. So we get the ridiculously wide R shape, which creates huge tension here. We go for a very square E shape. You do that now and tell me you have no tension. You know? So, as I say, it is a quick fix. It does make the chorus sound a little bit better, but it's not going to give you big wins. It's going to give you a very, very marginal win. Yeah, so any of those vowel shapes, you try singing and getting rid of these blockers that we've just talked about and just see how much better it sounds anyway. If we can then add a little bit of listening to each other to match those sounds a little bit by slight shaping, then that's okay. But it really isn't the be all and end all. You see some of the top quartets around, you will see almost no similar mouth shapes at all because they're making such great resonance. They know their vocal instrument. They've got the vocal tract open most of the time, and they're ringing the sound because it's just there. It's free. Okay, it's not because they're matching an E.
I guess migrating vowels is a different subject.
It is absolutely, yeah.
New subject.
It's a whole different. It's a good point, Chris. I'll have to put another one together on that, I think, because it is.
We have reached the end of our session time.
Oh.
So everybody unmute for just a second and tell Dale thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, brilliant session. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you come up with any more questions, absolutely drop an email and we'll make sure those get answered. Or if you want to drop them in the comments on YouTube, the video will be archived there and we'll be able to get those to Dale and get those answered as well. So thank you everybody for attending. Dale, thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thanks for hosting, Gus. Cheers.
Thanks, Dale.